Okay, so uh, we are going to do a demonstration, and what we're going to be doing today is this little drawing. Um, it's a wash, a watercolor wash, and we're only going to really be using one tone, and we're going to be using some purple tones. So it's pretty simple, and you can learn a little bit about watercolor while we're doing it. So we're going to start in here in a minute. But first, let's talk about some materials. Um, First thing, let's talk about some brushes. Okay, so I have here some brushes, and um, from this side I have my sables, some large watercolor brushes, some mops, some flats, and a big drawing brush. Um, this is a Winsor Newton Series 7. Um, Arguably the finest brush ever made. If you ever get one of these brushes, um, they hold their tip very, very well. They're made from a Kolinsky sable. Some people say that the synthetic hairs are just as good. That has not been my experience. I think the natural hairs are much better. If you do buy one of these brushes, you're going to spend a little bit more money. These are made in England. And if you buy one, they come with sizing in the tip. So the first thing that you want to do when you buy this brush is get yourself a little cup of water um, and load the brush up to get the sizing out. Okay, and you're going to want to do two things. First, with it loaded, you want to flick it against your finger. And then what you want to do is hold it and see if it splits. Okay, see if the hairs split out. That's going to tell you whether it's a good brush. Even with the good brushes, you're going to get some splitting. The second test is you're going to want to put it between your fingers and roll it back and forth quickly. And when you look at it, you shouldn't see any hairs fly out. And that's usually the mark of a good brush. Okay, so I'm going to put this one aside, and we'll look at a couple of the other brushes. This is a 7. I have some smaller ones. These are some larger round brushes. They are natural hair as well. Good for large areas. Some of my favorite brushes that I've been using for quite some time are these Squirrel hair brushes. Now, this is a Da Vinci, which are arguably probably the most expensive of the bunch. This is a Korean brush, Huang. The first time I got these brushes, they were Utrecht brushes, and Utrecht was very good at buying brushes and putting their name on them. These hold a lot of water, and they will hold their tip very, very nicely. So these are some of my favorite brushes to use. I also have a couple sizes of some flats, larger, smaller. These are very good, especially for making shapes or doing some line work, as you'll see later. Now, also, what I use are some of these Chinese goat hair or horsehair brushes. This is called a hake. Very good for washing down, making shapes. I have a smaller one, a couple different sizes. And then some standard medium quality Chinese calligraphy brushes, which are awesome, really, really good with watercolor. You can see I've used some red on this one here, but these are clean. I use a Da Vinci soap to clean these. Pretty easy. Just get it wet, go in a circle, okay, and then go once you go around in a circle, put some water in your hand, go around a circle in the palm of your hand, very gently, you know, and they'll get very, very clean. You can use shampoo, hair shampoo, and then conditioner to kind of get your brushes back into shape. I do that a lot. So I'll put these aside. As far as colors, I'm going to use 3 different types. Now, these are tube colors. These are a new brand that I have been using. They are a Korean brand, and Korean brands are surprisingly good. The 3 ones I normally use are Permanent Rose, Cerulean, and Cobalt, and these are the true transparent watercolors. Some colors are not as transparent as others. These are very nice. I like these. I've been normally using Cotman's, which is more of a student grade watercolor, because that's all that's available here in China. Just the Cotman's. I don't see the higher end watercolors, but you can get some other ones. I use the Schminkies a little bit, but I'm using these right now. Put these aside. Now, as far as cake sets, we'll look at these later. These are actually gouache, which I love. I love. Holbein, one of my favorites. Okay, so this is a new Schminky kit that I'm using, and this is a smaller kit. There's kits that have all the colors, but I have rearranged the colors so that I have my transparent or warmer watercolors and my more opaque or my cooler colors. This is more like an Cerulean. This is not a Permanent Rose, probably closer to a Vermilion. Cobalt, I have more of a cad red, and a ultramarine blue. Down here I have the beginnings of a more of an earth tone triad, which is, we have our ochre, our sienna. We should have a indigo blue. I don't have that in this particular kit, but I do have a couple greens, a Payne's gray, which I could probably use as an indigo in a pinch, and then a black. But we're going to be using a lot of these colors. This comes out very conveniently so that I have all of this area to mix with. So this is a really nice kit to carry around. Plus, it's not plastic. This is metal. I will have to say I do really enjoy mixing on metal rather than plastic. They both work, but the metal is nice. Okay, so let's put this aside for a second. I am a big fan of these cake kits. Holbein is just dynamite. You can use these as watercolor. Just use a little bit more water. Plus, they'll get opaque very quickly. The colors are very vibrant. I really like these colors. So we will probably be using some of these at some point. So let's put these away. And let's get to it. Okay, so I have some watercolor paper here. This is about 140 pounds. I think this is Rubens, which is a Chinese brand of watercolor paper. A little bit cheaper. Not too bad. I think we're going to see a little bit of curling, but no problem. If you wet the back of the paper, it should lie flat. Because because we're gonna work kind of quick. So, got my paper down. What I'm gonna do, I normally have when I have water. You want to have at least two water. So I have this cup, and I also have one of these handy things, and I have a little sponge in there. And also, it's a good idea. This is just a little soap kit that you can keep a sponge on the top, so you can just wipe some of the paint off before cleaning it in one water and then putting it in another water. You always want to have one water for cleaning and one water for putting water into the colors, because if you are always using one water, your water is going to get colored and dirty, and then your colors are not going to be clean, and you're going to wonder why your colors are so muddy. It's because your brush is still carrying a lot of that pigment from the last time you picked up another color, and you just rinse it, but that pigment stays in there, and you mix, and you're going to get frustrated. So always, let's rinse. Okay, we can wipe first, rinse, and then pick up some new color. Okay, so we're going to get this out of the way right here. You won't see this on camera. We may have a little bit of room for our mixing palette. So here I got my first picture here, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a wash, and we're going to use one color. And what I'm just going to use my basic colors, and they work this way. Yeah, this is fine. Can we see everything? All right, that works good. Okay, and I'm going to use a flat brush for this. Flat brushes are nice. They can make good shapes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wet down the paper. Okay, get it wet, not too wet. Now you could put this inside of a pan. I've seen a lot of other artists put their work inside of a pan so it's not messy. This probably would be very good if you're teaching in school, if you have the budget for it. But working at home, this works nicely for me. If you wet both sides, you see how it's flattening out, because what's going on is the paper is not being pulled both ways, only one way. It's being pulled both ways. Okay, so it'll lie kind of flat. Okay, let's get that other stuff off of there. Okay, so we got some water on there, not too much. Should be good. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to work from the background to the foreground. So you straighten this up a little bit. Let's straighten it. Looks a little better on camera. Okay, how's that? That's good? Okay, good. All right, so let's get some water in there, my mixing palette. And I'm gonna make a purple. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to stick with my transparent watercolors. I'm not going to go to these darker ones, but I'm going to stick with these guys right now. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of cobalt. Okay, mix some colors in there. Now one of the artists I've recently been studying, Slusarski, she really likes to mix her colors on the paper, which works surprisingly well. Okay, let's pick up some red. Okay. It's kind of a, I think that's enough. And let's just put that on. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a landscape, so I'm going to just kind of brush a little bit. I want to see a little bit of that white. See a little bit of that white on the bottom. That's going to be kind of interesting. Okay, and see I got a little bit of a hair there. Let's just sit still there. Let's just get rid of it. That might be this brush. I just cleaned all these brushes. Okay. All right. I don't want to noodle with it too much. Just make sure that brush is there. Okay. As you can see right here, it's bending a little bit because we've got water here, and water everywhere, but it's not as much paint here, here, and here. But I like what's going on here. Okay, already, because the water's doing what it wants, and this is a little bit of a dry brush technique because I used my paint up here, and then as the paint went away, I kind of lifted up a little bit, and I'm getting a little bit of the white here, which is going to be interesting. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to come back, and then we're going to start putting in more of the background. All right, so I used my hair dryer, and I dried this, so it's nice and dry. Looks pretty good. Now I'm going to put a little bit of a background in there, and we're going to get some water, and let's get a little bit, we'll just get a little bit darker. Okay, a little bit darker color. That looks a little bit darker. Now I want to get a little bit of a hard edge. Do I want a hard edge? I don't know, maybe I don't want a hard edge. Maybe not. So what we can do, take a little spray bottle. Okay, I'm just going to put a little bit of water on there. And I'm just going to draw an M. Bring it down a little bit. And let's clean out that brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some water down here, just so let's get a little bit of that color. So I get a little bit of fade. Okay. I like this up here. It's going to kind of fade out a little bit. It's almost like a little bit of an atmospheric perspective. Now I still got a little bit of that white in there, and I'm just gonna kind of play a little bit here. Put a little bit of a texture, because that's coming forward. And there could be water in there, or maybe this could be a marsh. But let's use a little bit of that color, because we're going to glaze over the top of that with some darker colors. But we can take advantage of having just a little bit of this down here. And I don't mind this. This is going to be all right. I mean, it's wispy, you know, when it dries. So let's get our hair dryer, and we'll put it on low. And I'm going to blow it down because I don't want to blow that into the sky, and I can actually maybe get a little bit of an effect. Get that water to run. See, it's running down a little bit. I could blow it harder. I'm going to take my time. Not go so fast. I think that's kind of interesting. We've got some, almost like maybe that's some mist coming around those mountains. You know, we could help that. We could help that mist a little bit. We could do some dry brushing. Yeah. Oh, this is exciting. So this brush is totally dry. Let's just kind of come down. Maybe. Bring it up a little bit. Kind of make it mysterious. Yeah. Dig that. Maybe a little bit over here. And I like what's going on here. You know, it's almost like a little bit of atmospheric perspective. So I'm digging that. Okay, and I think this is okay. So we're gonna keep going. Okay. Still using the same brush. What I'm gonna come in now is make another plane. So I have my sky, and this is kind of my background mountains. And I'm gonna come a little closer, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to I want a little bit different color. So it's still going to be monochromatic, but let's change that purple up a little bit. So we got this color, and I'm thinking maybe we'll go a little bit more blue, just a little bit more blue. So we get darker. And we're going to kind of wisp across. So you still got some wet in there. Now my brush is kind of got a lot of paint in it. I'm just going to wisp. Just kind of getting some different colors in there. And you can see how it's still wet. So, you know, it's bleeding into everything a little bit, and I'm going to use all that. You know, I'll go back when this dries and maybe make some clearer mountains. But I like this. I like the different kind of tones, and then we got a little bit of action going with the glazing going on. You know, just kind of moving around a little bit. Just kind of bringing in a little abstract. See over here where it's not as wet, you're starting to see it holding that shape. I don't want to noodle with this too much. But I don't want to, sometimes when it's wet, it comes over, you can see it starts to create a little bit of a hard edge where there's more pigment. And that can be very cool, but that's not really what I'm interested in. You can use these kind of show some kind of maybe rolling hills in the background. We're going to go in there with a little bit darker color, but we're, you know, just kind of, I think I need to dry brush that a little bit. We'll just kind of feather it. A dry brush is going to pull up some of that water, and you can shape it a little bit as it dries, and you can see how I'm shaping it, and it's kind of giving it a little bit of an edge. Because maybe we see that edge. Just kind of feather it a little bit. Just easy. Easy. We'll go back into it with our we're dry now. Now I can go in with that darker color, and we're going to use less water and more pigment. We want definitely more blue, so I'm still just kind of leaving a little bit of that foreground, you know, because who knows? It's, you know, it's colors everywhere. You know, kind of bring some of that to the front, and kind of using the brush, just kind of use the shape and give it some texture. I think maybe this will be water. I don't know. You know, with art, a lot of times the viewer is going to add their own lens to the art and maybe complete the pictures for you. You don't have to think of everything, although some people would like you to, but you don't have to explain yourself. You don't. You don't. Sometimes you can just make it up as you go along. And that's what we're doing right here. We're just kind of making it up. Alright, so I got my background. Okay, I'm liking that. Okay, so it looks like we got this kind of hilly area right here, and we're going to go a little bit darker in the foreground before we add some trees, and then maybe add some trees and some bushes. So a little bit more blue. There we go. Yeah. There's my foreground. Yeah, so I think there's definitely a little river there. Even a little darker foreground. A little bit of water there. Now it's still blending. You know, still getting a little bit of a blend because it's still wet. You gotta think on your feet. If you want to get this kind of effect, you gotta have a little bit of it wet so that you have some of these colors bleeding into each other. You know, it's kind of almost like a natural blending. Let's get a little bit smaller brush. Get a little bit more control. And I'm not using as much water. We definitely want it a little bit more blue, so maybe got some rocks, just some little things sticking up, you know, going different directions. It's still kind of monochromatic because really we're using two colors to make the one color, so I'm not really introducing other colors. All right, that looks cool. All right, now comes the fun part. So we're going to add some trees. And we're going to add some trees in the background first. And I think we definitely need to get a little contrast in there. So it's going to be more blue. More blue than purple. So that stands out. And what I'm going to do is a little bit of water. I'm just going to, I should try this out on another piece of paper, but just kind of use the brush. And see that the brush is kind of, I'm not making it flat, so it's got a little bit of character to it. So I'm just going to kind of add some shrubbery back there. Something. Back a little bit. Gully. And let's vary it a little bit. Get some a little bit. Just go up a little bit. So they kind of go straight. So we're leaning around. That's cool. I'm digging that. Okay, let's cut that. And I could probably get a little darker back in there to get some shadows, which means let's go a little bit bluer. And let's just hit it at the bottom a little bit. Just a little bit, just so you know, there's some shadows at the bottom of those trees where the light's not getting down there. So it's just a little darker. Now some people say, oh, let's use some black. Black is cool. Oh my goodness, look at that. That's actually a good idea. Good thing I did that. I can just wipe it away. You know, splash. Yeah, it's okay. Put a little water on there. It's no problem. Add to it. Just be careful not to splash next time. It's gone. No problem. Okay, so now I'm going to use a bigger brush. This is another these Korean brushes. I'm going to start going into the foreground. And this is a technique I actually learned this doing oils. And easy to do. There's a lot of ways you could do this. So I'm going to make a darker color. I'll use this guy. And so we need, actually what we need is a more saturated color. We just need more paint and less water, so it's darker. Okay, and we want it dark so it stands out because it's going to be in the foreground. That looks pretty good. I'll leave this brush loaded because I'll use this later. Let's get this brush a little wet. Now what I want to do is get this brush, okay, so that it's nice and flat. Okay, so I'm going to go back and forth like this, get some paint on it, but I'm also getting it very flat. And now I'm going to use the brush, and I'm going to start to make my trees. to start in the background. A couple of them back here. I think Bob Ross maybe does something like this too. You know, kind of get those trees in there. We'll get something in the background first, and then we'll kind of add some. Oh, see, that's so thick. No, that's not good. What we can do is quick, turn that into leaves. Yeah, just like that. Some leaves in there. Just using the tip, moving around. Now these are still in the background, so we want them to kind of blend in a little bit. We're going to put one more row in the foreground so we can get a little darker. And let's get some over here. These are a little further away. Now you don't have to draw every leaf. I mean, it's when you look at trees, it's an abstraction. It's a pattern, really. So you're just kind of making a pattern, and you can see how I've split my brush a little bit, so I can kind of pattern. You could do this with a sponge, or maybe a bad brush. I mean, I could leave this like this. It's not bad, but I want to go into it just a little bit more. You just kind of put in some leaves, like Bob Ross, happy little trees. It's coming along nicely. It's almost like there's like maybe a river flowing through here. Okay. Some animals coming to drink. All right. So now I want a bigger tree. Maybe there's a couple trees here. So I need to get some more of the really dark stuff. Okay, because remember this is kind of monochromatic. I could cheat and add a little bit of black to it, but let's just stick with what we're doing. So now let's get a little more blue. Let's get that darker. Oh, darker. Now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint. Go off the brush, much thicker. Maybe we got, that got really thick there, because that's still really wet. That's okay, we'll use it. Over. Let's try this. Just tip of that brush really just kind of. This is just a better brush to do this with. Still shape this. And I'm not really worried about this right here, because I can fix that, no problem. Remember, we're going to put some leaves. This is not a dead tree. It's alive. But I do think we need to put one more over here. Maybe Any lonely trees. Oh, I can't stop. Oh, trees everywhere. They're growing. I feel like I'm like a god creating this little area. And up, out. And I'm holding it at a little bit of an angle, so I'm not getting everything. So I'm just getting a little bit. And this kind of control, you know, it just comes with practice. I mean, at some point, you have to kind of let yourself go and make mistakes and just be happy with them. Now I want this dry a little bit so I can maybe get some grass. So I've kind of wiped it a little bit. Get some little grass. Just pull up some of that paint. You know, a little bit of grass. Oh, just a little bit. Fill in this little bit. I mean, maybe that's snow, I don't know. But just a little bit, just to give that just a little bit of texture. And I could even, you know, go back in here, get some reeds, you know, something growing around the bottom there. Just using the brush. I'm digging that. Okay, now I need to do just a little bit of work on the leaves in the foreground. So I'm going to go back to this brush because I'm having some good success with this. And let's make our color a little bit more of a reddish purple, just so we can get a little bit of contrast, just a little different. Okay, and we're just gonna pull a little bit, not too much. That really pops. Here. That'd be a good idea to vary this color a little bit because leaves, depending upon how old they are, they change colors. They're not always all the same color. It doesn't matter. It's fun. Just kinda. This is a little quick painting. You know, I like these little fast paintings. You know, you don't have to do a painting that takes forever. And this would be a nice little painting. Send somebody in a little letter. Not very big. Easy. Easy to do. And, you know, you could just pick your color. You know, you could do it in violet or yellow or red. Doesn't matter, because you are creating it. You don't have to create like somebody else. Be your own thing. And then when somebody sees your work and it's easy for you to create it and they want something like that, then it's easy. It's not easy to copy somebody else's style. That's difficult. You know, drawing like somebody else. And you know, you can definitely do it as you get better at whatever it is that you want to get better at. But, you know, I tell a lot of my students, you know, find your own style. If you do what everybody else is doing, it's going to be difficult for you to make money at it if that's something that you want to do. Or if you just want somebody to say that you're doing something original, that's really cool. Okay. Well, I think we're going to call this finished, even though I keep wanting to add more to it. I'm going to finish it. And probably the last thing that you want to do is get your brush, get a nice dark color, and put your name on it. And there we go. Easy. A simple monochromatic landscape that you can do. Not that difficult, but it's a good place to start and a good place to learn. So my name is Michael. Thank you so much for being with me, and I hope you'll see me again sometime soon. Bye.